afternoon. Hope you're doing well today. Today is April the 13th. It's a lesson with Mrs. Proctor on compare and contrast. But before we get started, we're going to do a fun little activity here. Would you rather? A, would you rather be able to control the weather? Meaning, would you like to make it rain or have sunshine outside? Or would you rather be able to talk to the animals? In other words, have a conversation with a dog or a cat or a chicken or a fish. Well, I will tell you, Mrs. Proctor would rather be able to talk to the animals. I have a dog named Shiloh, and he is always doing so many funny things, and I think it would be super fun to be able to talk to him and see what he's thinking. All right, we're going to actually go ahead now. I hope that was fun for you. We're going to move on to the lesson, compare and contrast with Mrs. Proctor. The learning target today is to compare and contrast the adventures and experiences of characters in a story. Our success criteria, let me show you where I'm looking at right here, is to write similarities and differences of two stories using a Venn diagram. Now, you're going to listen to two stories during this lesson, and then you're going to go back and compare and contrast. Now, what in the world is Ms. Proctor talking about, compare and contrast? Well, when you compare something, you're trying to find out how they're similar. If you look up here on the board, I've got two butterflies here. They're the same in their color, but when I contrast them, they're different in their size. And then take your attention over here to the two apples. When you contrast these two apples, you notice that their color is different, right? One is green and one is red, but how we can compare them is they're both apples. They're both similar because they're both the same type of fruit, but they're different because of their color. Now I want you to look at these animals. How are they similar and how are they different? Can you state out loud right now how they're the same and how are they different? That's right. They are both horses, types of horses. One actually has stripes, and it is called a zebra. And then there's a stallion, this black, dark brown horse, and it is actually solid brown. All right, so let's go ahead and figure out how we're going to compare and contrast these two stories. Now, remember, when you compare something, you state how they are alike or the same. And when you contrast, sorry about that. When you contrast, you're going to state how they are different or not alike. Now, if you pay close attention to these two little girls here, you can say both of them are girls. So that's how we're comparing they're alike. And then how they're different are their hair color. One has black hair, one has blonde hair. One has straight hair, one has curly hair. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the next slide just to give you a visual of a Venn diagram. I don't know if you remember back in class, we actually had two circles that overlap each other. I don't know why my slides keep popping back and forth. I apologize for that. The Venn diagram is actually a circle that overlaps each other, and then the circle that's in the very center where you see the arrow pointing, that area is how the two are the same. So I have listed up here human and then frog. We have a visual of a little boy and a visual of a little frog. Now, a human is born live, whereas a frog is hatched from an egg. A human lives in a house, but a frog lives in a pond. But then you think to yourself, okay, Ms. Proctor, how are these even the same? Well, they are the same because they both live on land, and we are both animals. Remember, humans are mammals. We both swim. I know how to swim. All humans can learn how to swim. And a frog and a human both have lungs. Those are organs in your body. So that's how they're the same. If you look over here to this topic, you've got two types of dogs, right? One's called a cockapoo It's a small little animal. And then you have a Saint Bernard. He's a really big dog, right? So how are they different? Their sizes. Back to when we looked at that picture of the butterflies, those butterflies were very similar, but they were different sizes. Just like these dogs, we have a large dog and we have a small dog. This is really kind of funny. Ms. Proctor put down here, the St. Bernard actually likes to drool. That means all that slobber coming out of their mouth, lots of drool. But this little cockapoo, he doesn't drool a lot. And he doesn't eat very much. But a Bernard, St. Bernard, he eats a lot of food. And his hair is really long. So the hair on his, the hair sheds. That means it comes off of him a lot. Whereas the cockapoo, their hair doesn't shed very much. And how are they the same? Well, right up here, if you paid attention to the middle circle, they are very friendly. They're both very smart dogs, and they both don't really bark very much. So this is a great example of compare and contrast using a Venn diagram. Now it's your turn. In order for you to be able to compare two stories, you're going to actually have to listen to those stories, right? So I have two stories listed here. One is called the Burro's Tortillas, and the next story is called the Little Red Hen. So now what I want you to do is I want you to take a few minutes, click on the link here at the top. You will right-click and make the hyperlink live so that you can listen to the story. This particular story is about 6 minutes long, and I think the Little Red Hen is about 4 minutes long. So just pause the video of me, go ahead and watch those two stories, and then we're going to go back and compare these two stories. All right, so you've listened to the stories, the Burro's Tortillas and the Little Red Hen. Now what you're going to do is you're going to list the characters from each story and events that took place. This is going to be a really helpful activity for you to do so that you can compare and contrast in a Venn diagram these two particular stories. All right, I'm going to do the first one for you. Burro, which was the character in that story, just like you listened to, he picked the corn. The Little Red Hen, the Little Red Hen picked the wheat. Now I want you to just take a few minutes and list some other characters that you saw in each story and then what took place. It doesn't have to be in a complete sentence. Just get your piece of paper and just write down what you remember about those two stories, the characters and the events that took place. All right, you can go ahead and pause the video, and then we're going to move on to the next slide after you finish this little 2 or 3 minute activity. All right, it is your turn now. All those fun things that you just wrote down, writing the characters and the events that you wrote, now you get to use your Venn diagram. You're going to compare and contrast. So in the Burro's Tortillas, you realize that the Burro was the one that went and picked the corn. And in the Little Red Hen, you discovered in that story that Little Red Hen was busy working and picked the wheat. So you are going to actually write down. It's so easy, guys. It's not a big deal if you don't know how to draw a circle super perfect. Just take your paper and you can just draw one circle, and it doesn't have to be perfect, and then overlap it with the other circle so that you can't hardly see that, can you? Let me see if I can get another piece of paper. You're going to take, and I'll show you, it's not got to be perfect, okay? Ms. Proctor's not asking you to make it perfect. I just want you to make sure that you can compare and contrast your two. See, I've got a little bump on my circle, but that's okay. Now you have the compare and contrast, and remember, what is the same, meaning compare, goes in the center, okay? All right, now let's check our work after you finish. So pause the video, fill out your Venn diagram, and then come back and let's check our work. All right, what are the similarities in the two stories? What are the differences in the two stories? Which story did you like the best? All right, let's go ahead and check our work. All right, Burro's tortillas. The Burro picks the corn. He was such a hard worker. He removed the kernels. He ground flour, and he made the small dough to cook the tortillas. And then the other characters that were in that book was a cat, a Caillou, short for coyote, and a jackrabbit. They were always making excuses about why they couldn't help. And then in contrast, you had the little red hen, and he planted the wheat and he cut the wheat and he went to the wheat mill and he made the flour and he baked a cake. So that's in contrast. One made a tortilla and the other one made a cake. But they both, look in the center, they both worked super hard and they both ate what they made. Did they need the help from the other characters? No. But if you notice, both of the animals smelled the food and they all wanted to help eat the food. But the little red hen and the burro would not have it. Now, I just caught something just a minute ago when I was comparing and contrasting. There is a character that is the same in both of these books. That's right, it is. It's a cat. So if you put cat in the very center, there was a cat in both the little red hen and the burro tortilla. Good eye for you catching that. The cat and the dog and the mouse and the little red hen, they kept saying, not I, not I. Whereas the characters over here in the burro's tortillas, they kept making excuses for why they wouldn't help. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that you were able to be successful on comparing and contrasting these two stories. Make sure you send me a message about which story you enjoyed the most on Talking Points. And I appreciate you coming, and here's some resources that I used. Have a wonderful day and have a great learning day.